Man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds out of the mouth of God. Your word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my pathway. Your word I've hidden in my heart that I might not sin against you. Blessed is the man who walks not in the counsel of the ungodly, nor stands in the way of the sinner, nor sits in the seat of the scornful, but his delight is in the law of the Lord, and in his law he meditates day and night. Good evening, good evening, good evening. Howdy, howdy, howdy. Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is Pastor Sam May from Deliverance Bible Church, Tacoma, Washington, in the 253. And we are so glad, I am so glad, we are so glad that you stopped by to be with us this Wednesday evening for our Bible study time. We call this time of the week, this time of the day of the week, this time of the day. Wednesday, some call it Hump Day. We call it Word Alive Day. It's a time God has granted us the opportunity to share His Word with you and to learn more about Him, His call for our lives, and how He wants us to order our lives in Him. So we count it a blessing. We count it all God that we're able to do this with you, and we pray that these broadcasts are being a blessing to you. Listen, if you're here for the first time, we're glad that you stopped by. If you're coming back, we're glad you came back, whatever it might be. Listen, hit that share button. This is DBC Tacoma Facebook Live. Hit that share button, or however you do that on your device, and let somebody know that DBC Tacoma is broadcasting on Facebook Live. And we always remind you that we also make these broadcasts available on our YouTube page. DBC Tacoma is our YouTube page. So if they can't get us on Facebook, everybody don't have Facebook, I have to keep reminding us of that, but YouTube is real easy to get to. If they know how to get to the web browser and put in YouTube, DBC Tacoma, and they will find our page there. Not only the broadcast that we're doing on Wednesday evenings, but they'll also find out a lot of other broadcasts. Our Sunday morning broadcasts are also on YouTube, also, as well as our Sunday morning broadcast on Facebook, DBC Tacoma Facebook. So whatever it is, help us get the word out. We're just trying to build people up in God. In times like these, we need to be built up even more and more in the Word of God, because God wants us to live lives differently from much of what we see going on around us. So we praise God for another day. We thank Him for His mercy and His kindness, His strength. He took some of us out and brought us back in, and some of us were in, and He kept us while we were in. Whatever it is, whatever the occasion might be, situation might be, we bless and we thank God. Let's go to God in a word of prayer. Father, you're awesome and you are mighty. Great you are and greatly to be praised, and so we honor you and we worship you in your holiness, God, in your majesty. You are King of kings and you are Lord of lords, and there's nobody like you nowhere. And we proclaim again that you are God alone and you alone are God. And so we bless you for the day. We thank you for bringing us through this day, God. You did what was necessary in our lives to get us through, and so we thank you. And we just ask for your help now as we look into your word. Make us more aware of what you're calling for from our lives. I pray that there's some who need to take a second look at how they're operating, God, to make sure that we're operating under your word. So we thank you for your word tonight. Help me, God, I'm weak, but you are strong. Edify your people. Glorify your name. In the wonderful name of Jesus, we pray. Amen. Amen. Well, we're yet in the book of Colossians, and if you didn't get a chance to, we want to remind you that the notes, they're notes, not a full-blown outline, but just some notes, some things for you to consider. They're on our DBC Tacoma Facebook page. You can go there and get the notes for the night if you haven't gotten them yet, and we try to post those, kind of give you something to. When you're writing, sometimes it's hard to listen and write because you're trying to write and something. Everybody's going on talking while you're writing, so we try to give you something just to help you remember. And of course, you could put some other things down along the way as we share tonight. Listen, God is a God of order. He's a God of order. He even when you look at the earth, it opens up in Genesis. It says that in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, and it says that the earth was void and without form, as there was no order there. But God began to speak the word, and when He spoke the word, He brought all order. So God is a God of order, and God wants us to live orderly lives. Orderly lives. He doesn't want us all over the place. He has a direction for us. He has instruction for us and how He wants us to live our lives. And so tonight we're going to talk about instructions for order in relationships. There's basically two areas we're going to talk about tonight. One we'll spend more time in than the other, but God is a God of order. See, when you don't have order, it's easy to have chaos. Chaos. The reason when you go somewhere they want you to get in line is so that there's some order to you getting to where you're trying to go. When there's no order, there's chaos, and people many times just rush things, and they can mess things up. So excuse me. Order is important, even for us as believers, and walking in God. Order is important. So we're going to look at two areas where God tells us how to order our lives. The first one is in the home. Listen, the first one is in the home. And I realize that this subject by itself could, this has been the subject of workshops and conferences and men conferences and women conferences and all kinds of things. So we're not trying to do a conference tonight. We're not even trying to do a workshop tonight. We just want to perhaps remind some and inform others of the order God has called for us to walk in the home. In the home, okay? So as we go to Colossians chapter 3, starting at verse 18, I'm going to kind of bullet this. Starting at verse 18, there's some things we need to see here. He says, talking to the wives, he's going to talk to the wives, he's going to talk to the husband, he's going to talk to children, he's going to talk to parents, because he needed them to get an understanding of God, how God wants the house to be ordered. Okay, this is about function. Don't miss this. Ordered. He says in verse 18, wives, submit to your own husbands. Listen to this, as is fitting to the Lord. Now, there's another companion, I call it a book, companion text to this, which is in Ephesians 5:22, which is, wives, submit yourself to your own husbands as to the Lord. Now, it's interesting. We'll get to this in a little bit, but in verse 18, Colossians, he says, as is fitting in the Lord. And in 5:22 Ephesians, he says, as to the Lord. Now, let's see if we can clear the atmosphere here on a few things. This is not about the husband being superior and the wife being inferior. Okay, this is not about who's the smartest, who's all this other stuff. Nothing like that. Okay, in Genesis 1:27, it says that God created man in His own image. In the image of God, He created him, male and female. He created them. Excuse me, I don't know what this is in my throat. He created them male and female, both in His image. Please notice, both in His image. Listen, husband and wife have equal standing before God. Husband and wife have equal standing before God. We are equal in essence and in being. We are human beings. As a matter of fact, listen, we know that one is not superior and one is not inferior, because both husband and wife have to go by way of Calvary. Okay, that flattens the turf right there. We both have to go by way of Calvary. Both of us, it was necessary for us to be saved by the blood of Jesus, His death on the cross in our place. So the husband is not superior and the wife is not inferior. But this is, listen to this is about order. This is about function. Remember I told you earlier, where there's no order, chaos abounds. Listen, the word submit from the Greek hupotasso is to place under in an orderly fashion, to place oneself under in an orderly fashion. Now, in our society, this word submission, when it comes to women and men, it has a bad taste in some women's mouth, and I can understand. I can understand why, because there, and the world's idea of submit is to come under, to be ruled over, whatever. And there's women who have a tough, difficult time with this word submit. But this is not about coming under to be ruled over. Okay, this is about to place under in an orderly fashion. Submit. So he says, wives, submit yourself to your own husbands. So you submit, you come under him, if you would, wives. This is about an orderly fashion. Okay. Submit is to recognize a relationship of order as established by God. See, we want to live our lives on God's word, what God says, and not what society says. See, we see it all the time. Society speaks so much opposite of what God says. As a matter of fact, society, many cases, and in most cases, anti-God. Society has its own definitions and of how life ought to be lived and everything. So we don't live our lives according to society. We live our lives according to what the word says. So here, this is not about submission. It's not about being pushed down, oppressed. And this, unfortunately, is what many men have did to women. And so when women hear this word submission, the lights go off, the sirens sound. This word submission here is to place oneself under in an orderly fashion, orderly fashion. Okay, so it's not about inferior, superior, but inferior or superior. This is about God's established order. Now, in 1 Corinthians 11:3, perhaps we can see this just a little clearer. Paul here makes a statement to the church at Corinth, and he says, "But I want you to know that the head of every man is Christ, the head of woman is man, and the head of Christ is God." Now let me start at the end, come back. We know that Christ was God in the flesh, so that we know that God the Son is not inferior to God the Father. Let me just work it from that, okay? They are equal in essence, they are equal in being, but to teach us function, to teach us order, Jesus came and he functioned under the Father. He came to do the will of the Father, not because he was inferior, but because he wanted. We need to learn function. So God, the head of Christ is God. In other words, Christ functions under God. He ordered his life. As a matter of fact, when Jesus was here, he always talked about, "I come to do the Father's will. I come to do that which the Father has sent me to do." Okay, so he was functioning, if you would, under the Father, even though he was equal to the Father. So he says, so I want to go backwards. He says the head of the woman is the man, and the head of the man is Christ. So listen, in function, y'all help me to get through this tonight. In function, we see an order of God, Christ, the man, the woman. Now, the woman being the last one mentioned, if you would, God, Christ, the man, the woman, that does not make her inferior to the man. But in order to have relational function, order, if you would, function, the woman functions, she submits herself to the lead of her husband. This is so important to catch this. Y'all, women, please don't throw nothing at me. I'm trying to help you here, okay? I'm trying to get this thing in the right thing here. So listen to this. The husband is not, here you go, ladies, the husband is not the boss, the dictator, the tyrant, male chauvinist. He's not the ruler. He's not the ruler. Christ is the ruler. Jesus is Lord. Jesus is Lord. Okay, but to have, and men have tried to use this text to establish their authority. And it's interesting how people use the Bible conveniently for their purposes. Okay, we're gonna get to the men a little bit, but it's interesting. People try to use the Bible for their personal purposes. Okay, men have tried to use this text. Well, you see right here that you supposed to listen to me. I'm the man. Okay, now you out of context because you supposed to be as in the Lord. I'm gonna get to that in a minute. Okay, so you're not the boss, brother. You're not the dictator. You're not the tyrant. You're not the not supposed to be the male chauvinist. Don't use this text in an illegitimate manner to try to get over on your wife, to get her to do whatever you're telling her to do. I'll mention that. I'll talk to this in a minute too, okay? Wives can express their opinion. Let me put this out here. Wives, this doesn't mean they can't express their opinion. As a matter of fact, some of us, most of us men need to listen more to our wives. You brother, you are not the sum total of intelligence. You are not the sum total of wisdom. You need to listen to what your wife is saying. Your wife will see things you don't see. They'll see things you don't see. And most women, I would say that there's most Christian women, and I'm gonna make a blank statement. Most Christian women, they speak for the good of the marriage. They want the whole of the marriage. Okay, their marriage to be whole. So don't play down what they have to say. Don't try to um, invalidate what they have to say. God gives them understanding. God allows them to see things. Women normally can figure things out quicker than men can, but I got to move on off of that. We are methodical in our thinking, but women can come up with something. Can you tell you how they came up with it? Okay, so don't play don't play them off. You need to listen. Okay, she's your helper. She's your helper. She's supposed to help you accomplish the things in life that God wants you to accomplish. She's not less than you. She's not less than you. Oftentimes, um, I have conversations with my wife and I talk about this or I talk about that, and she brings some insight to it, something that I didn't see. Listen, something that I didn't think about, and I have to redo my thinking. And sometimes, like I say, baby, you right. You right. I didn't think about that. I didn't consider that. Okay, so the woman can have a voice, and if you're smart, you'll listen to what she's saying. Okay, so this is not about inferior. This is about order. Okay, so listen. Okay, let me go back up. As is fitting in the Lord, as to the Lord. So the woman follows her husband as is fitting in the Lord. Listen to this. As to the Lord, as in fitting in the Lord. Listen to this. Listen to this. Listen to this. Wives are to align themselves under the leadership of their husband. Listen to this. Within the boundaries of God's will, as unto the Lord, as fitting to the Lord, as to the Lord. Did y'all catch that? Okay. Her following her husband is valid, is God ordained, as long as her husband is following Jesus. Remember, Jesus Christ is the head of the man. Christ leads the man. So her husband, the direction he is walking in, needs to be dictated by Christ. By Christ. Remember, I told you he wasn't the ruler, the boss, and everything else. No, he's supposed to be following Christ. So, as the husband is following Christ, the woman is following her husband. So, if her husband is trying to get her to sin, to sin, to walk outside of the will of God, he comes up with this scheme. And you have to be careful with this, but he comes up with this scheme to make some money. Money cometh. But if money ain't coming it cometh in a legal manner, if it's going to be a illegal manner, then she's not obligated to follow that lead, because that lead is outside of the will of God. She follows her husband in the will of God, but she doesn't have to follow him outside the will of God. Listen to this. Listen to this. Obedience to God takes first priority. obedience to God takes first priority. And I know that could cause some issues and things along the way, ladies, if he ain't following Christ. But you have to trust God. You have to trust God. God is the one who has called you to follow him. And if your husband is not following God, you shouldn't be getting tied up in that stuff. And that could, yeah, I know, but you got to trust God. God's got you. You see, I believe it was Dr. Charles Stanley that once said, obey God and leave the results to him. Now, I'm just going to say it to you. Obeying God it can bring some stuff into your life that against you. The enemy will come against you and you're obeying God, and he'll come against you in your family and when you're obeying God. But you got to trust God that he will keep you. He will work you through whatever it might be. So the wife follows the husband as he is following Christ. The wife follows the husband. The wives are to follow the lead of their husbands who are walking in the Lord. So now, brothers, get your stuff together, talking about you're supposed to follow me, but make sure you're following Jesus, okay? This is not just something for you to gloat about and stick your chest out. No, you got to be following Christ. And when you're following Christ, listen, when you, oh God, when you are following Christ, husbands, you never have to tell your wife what you're doing. She'll see it in your life. Okay, let me go on here. Let me move on a little bit farther. Okay, so that's the instruction to the wives. Wives, functionally wise, you are to follow your husband. But here's the next part of it, and this simply is the to the husband. Verse 19. Verse 19 is to the husbands. Husbands, love your wives. I'm back. Colossians 3:19. I'm sorry. Husbands, love your wives and do not be bitter towards them. Husband, love your wives and do not be bitter toward them. Husbands are to seek the well-being of their wives. Listen, husbands, you always talking about she's supposed to be following you. This is what you're supposed to be doing. Leader, Mr. Out Front, okay. Mr. Want her to get in line with you, okay. This is what you're supposed to be doing. You're supposed to be seeking the well-being of your wife. Notice he says, love your wives. That Greek word agapeo, which is to regard with strong affection for your wife. So he says, have strong affection for your wife. But then he says, and do not be bitter towards them. Do not be harsh. Do not act in anger towards your wife. Do not show disdain towards your wife. Okay, don't be hateful. Don't be hateful towards your wife. Bitterness can bring up all that stuff. So he says, don't be bitter. Don't be bitter towards your wife. Listen, if she disagrees with you on something, don't fall out with her. Don't fall out with her. Remember, she has an opinion. She ought to be able to express her opinion. So don't you go falling out with her and going in funny directions on her because she doesn't agree with you. Listen, because you're supposed to love her even though she might not agree with you. Okay, because here it is, you are to seek the well-being, love your wives, and do not be bitter toward them. Let me give you the other text here, Ephesians 5:25. It says, husbands, love your wives, just as Christ also loved the church and gave himself for her. There you go. There you go. There you go. Christ loved the church and gave himself for the church. And that's how husbands are supposed to love their wives, seeking the well-being for their wives. But it's not just how we feel, it's not just how we think. We got a standard of love. And the standard of love that the husband is to have for his wife is shown in Jesus Christ in Ephesians 5:25. Just as Christ also loved the church and gave himself for her. Gave himself for her. Gave himself for for her. I hope you catching that. Himself, gave himself for her. Don't miss that. This love was a sacrificial love. He gave his all for the church. God gave his all. God gave his all for the church. The well-being of the church. The church. You and I. Remember, we who are the body of Christ. We are bodies. We are members of the body of Christ. We are members of His church. And listen to this, man. This is okay. Jesus held nothing back. He gave his all. It was a sacrificial. It was a sacrificial love. It was a love that it's hard for us to explain. A love it's hard for us to explain. I have no idea what that is, y'all. So y'all, we're gonna let that go. I don't know where that's coming from. Anyway, let me go on here. It was a sacrificial love. It was a love that it gives it all. It says, I'm gonna do the best. And whatever the best, I'm going to do it. I'm going to give my all. I'm going to give my all for the church. And that's what Jesus did. He gave his all for us. He gave his all for us. At Calvary, he gave his life. At Calvary, he suffered at Calvary. It was a sacrificial love. So men, we're called to have a sacrificial love for our wives. We're called to meet her need. That's what that is. Now, I'm not talking about house, car, all that other stuff. But women we're supposed to love her the way Christ loved the church. So we're supposed to love her that way, that there's nothing we will hold back from her. That's loving your wife the way Christ loved the church. He gave his all. It was a sacrificial love, even to the point of death. He gave himself up. He gave himself up. And I want you to see this too, brothers. Listen to this. Listen to this. Listen to this. This is not reciprocal. When he loved the church, it wasn't based on how much the church loved him. He just loved the church anyhow. It was not, listen, brothers. This was not, I did this for you, and now you do this for me. He loved the church. So when you're doing for your wife, get it out of your mouth. Get it off of your tongue. Well, I do all this and I do all that and I do all this and I do all that. No. That's that's love looking for something back. He loves. So when you love your wife, never bring back up in her face, in loving your wife, never bring back up in her face all that you've done for her, because that doesn't work. Y'all, hold me just a minute, y'all. So sorry about that. That never happened before. So sorry about that. Okay, we good now. Okay, we good now. So it was a sacrificial love. Stop telling your wife about all you do for her. Okay, I was going to talk about this later with the children, but stop talking about how hard you work and how all this. You supposed to do that. You supposed to do that. Okay, don't break your arm patting yourself on the back because you're supposed to do that. This is love beyond that. This is you saying, I love you so much. I got your well-being in mind. Okay, I want to help you. I want to support you. I want to help you grow in the Lord. I want to help you grow in the Lord. That's love, because whatever it is, I'm here for you. I'm here with you. We walking through this life together, and I want you to know that I have your best in mind. I have your well-being in mind. And I'm willing to do what's necessary to help you in your walk in the Lord. That's the husband loving his wife the way Christ loved the church. All in all. Yeah, that might mean that you need to go out of your way to do whatever for her. Go out of your way and do it, but don't brag on the fact that you went out of your way. You just demonstrated. See, love is demonstratable. We got too many people want to talk love, but we got to live love. Talk about how much you care, but caring is something that's shown up. Okay, so get off your high horse. Get off your, what if I do this and I do that? Just love her. Be there for her. Sacrifice her. Go out of your way. Okay. Do something for her that she could have did for herself, but you do it for her because you want to show her how much you love her. Okay, and I'll say this because I got to go on. I got to go on. I'll say this: a husband who loves his wife like that, she would probably have to be not in her right mind not to follow you. See, when you loving like that, it's not that difficult for her to follow you, okay? Because it's not that you are filling all her whims and wishes, but by your actions, you show that she's a priority in your life. She should be the second priority in your life. Jesus should be the first, and your wife should be the second. Okay, so we seek the well-being of our wives. We not just physically, but even emotionally, even mentally, emotionally. What can we do? What can I do? Well, baby, why are you feeling that way? Let's talk about that. Why are you thinking that way? I often say that when somebody says that they feel a certain way, it's not really good for us to say don't feel that way. The question becomes, well, why are you thinking that way? What's going through your mind? Sometimes she just needs to talk. Are you available for her just to talk? Not you trying to solve the thing. She just wants to talk sometimes, okay? Be there for her. Love her. Demonstrate it. Demonstrate your love for her. It's like Christ loved the church. He gave it all. He gave it all. That's the call of the husband. And I know one time I was talking to a young man about that. He said, "God, we got all that responsibility." I said, "Yeah, you do. There's more responsibility. You go back and read Ephesians 5 from verse 25 and on. You see that there's a whole lot of responsibility given to the husband about how he's supposed to show love for his wife. So yes, we have the great responsibility. Listen, leaders always have the great responsibility. Okay, all right, take that to the bank. Okay, let me move on here. So husbands are to seek the well-being of their wives. Listen to this. And I need to give you this. This is really important. Um, 1 Peter 3 and 7. I just want to give you this as an insert. 1 Peter 3 and 7. Here it is. Husbands likewise, coming off from what he said earlier to the wives, likewise, dwell with them, your wives with understanding, giving honor to the wife. Honor your wife as the weaker vessel. Now watch this. The weaker vessel is not about intellectually anything like that. It's physical. Physically, she's the weaker vessel. Physically, she is not as strong as you are. Okay, but here it is, and as being heirs together of the grace of life. Here's the word again. The turf is level. One is not better than the other. Both of you are heirs. Both of you are heirs of life, of the grace of life. So there again is the ground is level. But listen to this. He says that your prayers may not be hindered. This is to the husband. Listen, the husband who is disrespectful in his treatment of his wife will not see his prayers answered. Some of y'all, brothers, some of y'all praying and all this other stuff, and you talking God and you talking Bible, and you even want to use the Bible on her, but you're not treating her right. You're disrespectful in your treatment of her, and you praying and you nothing's going on. Nothing's going on because you are out of the will of God in the way you treat your wife. You can't be disrespectful towards your wife, and expect God to be answering your prayers. Okay, get it together. Get it. Okay, let me move on here. You want your prayer life to be fruitful. One of the areas you need to pay attention to is how you are treating your wife. How you are treating your wife. Because listen, if you're treating your wife wrong, that's sin. So if you're sinning while you're praying, your prayers ain't answered. Okay, so that's an area of life for us to take a look at as men. What's your attitude towards your wife? Are you listening to her? Are you paying attention to her? Are you honoring her? Are you honoring her? All that goes into it. Okay, so if you're not doing that, guess what? God's saying you ain't listening to me, I ain't listening to you. That's my anyway. Anyway, okay. So why is this important for Paul to write here to the husbands and the wives and the husbands? Very simple, because women can resist this idea of headship of the husbands. He's not my daddy. Okay, he's not your daddy. He's your husband. And God has said that you follow him as he's following Christ. Okay. The other side of that is that husbands try to abuse their leadership role. Do as I say. No, let's talk about this. You want to be the authority, the ruler. That's not your call. Your calling is to be the leader of your wife. Okay. So let's move on then. I gotta go. Uh, then he moves to children in verse 23 and 20 Colossians. And he says, children, obey your parents in all things. Now, watch this again. For this is well pleasing to the Lord. This is how God would have children function in the family. Now, in my note outline, I put offspring are to function under authority of the parents. Why? Because this is not necessarily to little children. We get children. As a matter of fact, there's a lot of they sit to get the kids get to a certain age. Don't call me a child no more. They want to be whatever. Okay, so this is not to children, little children. This is to, listen to this. If your parent is providing food, housing, clothing, medical care, etc., 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 you are to function under the authority of your parents. Okay, they are your main providers. Okay, so you are to function under their authority. Uh, Ephesians 6:1 says, "Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right." Is right what? In the Lord. Parental love, care, dependent on parents. Okay. Uh, One of the things that's unfortunate today is that we have a lot of young people who are at home, but they want to call the shots. They don't want to listen. They don't want to come under authority. They don't want to listen. Okay, and so that's not good when you have young people, children, young people, who are telling their parents what they're gonna do. I'm going. Not. It used to be, can I go? It used to be, is it all right if I go? Now is, I'm gone. I'm going. Okay, so in homes, unfortunately, in many homes, this structure, this order of authority, of leadership in the home has been abolished. It's been kicked. It's been kicked to the curb. Okay, it's gone, and so as a result, um, we have in many times where you have many places, not, this is not blanket, but many places where you have children who don't understand authority and leadership of the home. They disrespect the authority and leadership in the home. They would disrespect it everywhere else too. Okay, they'll do it because that's just how they are. Okay, and so and a lot of kids are having tough time. Not all, but a lot of kids are having a tough time because that lack of authority in the home translates to them not respecting authority anywhere else. They're in rebellion. Okay, but here's the thing, parents: you still got to teach them what the word says. Okay, again, that's your responsibility. That it is pleasing to the Lord. First of all, teach them to obey God. Listen, I often tell parents, especially when their children have claimed Jesus Christ as their Savior, I often tell parents to teach their child the reason they need to obey you is because this is in God. But here's the thing, parents, you got to make sure that you obeying God yourself. That I went down to another note already. Okay, and so when you teach them to obey you, that's pleasing in God. But here's the big thing is you want them to obey you because you want them to obey God. Okay, that's really the issue. That's really the issue because I wanted my kids to understand, and many parents want their kids to understand that God sees you when I don't see you. So don't think because I don't see you, you're doing what you're doing. God sees you. So God becomes the focus. We need to shift that focus away from ourselves to God because God needs to become the focus. God needs to become the one that we are pointing them to. You need to point your children to God. So make sure yourself you are obeying God. There was that old saying. The old saying used to be, "Do as I say, not as I do." With that, no, come on, no. When you get going, no. You are supposed to be obeying God. The parent. Listen to this. The parent should be the pattern of obedience for their children. Did you catch that? The parent should be the pattern of obedience for their children. In other words, they ought to see you obeying God. Okay, they ought to see you obeying God. You're the pattern. They obey you. You obeying God. That's the pattern. Okay, so children are under the authority of their parents. That's the way God set it down, and that's why we have to be careful. Now, understand the parents, but when your kids start wanting you to be their best friend, well, friends don't tell friends what to do. Friends talk to friends, but when it comes down to it, friends don't tell friends what to do. You are the authority in Jesus Christ. You have to tell them what to do. So be careful with being your kid's best friend. You might lose the leadership function when you're just trying to be their best friends. Because remember, what friends want is friends want the approval of what they're doing from other friends, and when you come down to it, you can't be approving everything your kid wants to do. Okay, you can't do that. Make sure you're not trying to line up and do that. Okay, so children are to line up or to function under the authority of their parents. This is God given. This is God given. This is the word of God. And again, don't beat them over the head with it, parents. You need to just live it and show them. This is you in my house, mama. Then you said you're in my house. You do what I'm gonna tell you, boy. Girl, you gonna do what I tell you, okay? But they didn't bring the God concept in. They didn't bring the God perspective in, okay? Make sure with your children you bring the God perspective in, okay? Because the bottom line is even God that you want your children to be aware of pleasing. You want your children to walk in God. Make sure you do that, okay? Okay, so Colossians 3, 21. He says, fathers, do not provoke your children lest they become discouraged. Now, we've been talking about, the kids coming under the leadership of their parents. He says here to the fathers, he says, do not provoke your children lest they become discouraged. Ephesians 6 and 4 says, fathers, do not provoke your children to wrath. Provoke, stir up, but bring them up in the training and the admonition of the Lord. This is what I was kind of talking about earlier about training our children in God thing. Fathers are to have the well-being of their children in mind. Notice what he says again. He says, don't provoke them, don't stir them up. And Ephesians 4 says to wrath, don't provoke them to wrath. He says, though, and he says, lest they become discouraged. So this takes this takes in the home more than you just being there and providing physical, with physical provision. Okay, listen, just their physical needs. Listen, sinners do that. Sinners know how to provide for the physical need of their children. No, this is different. This is not about you just going to work every day and house, roof over the heads and food. No, this is more than that. He says lest they become discouraged. This is a lot about the mental and emotional well-being. That word discouraged here is to be despondent, disturbed in mind, lose courage. That sounds like what God says to us as his children. He doesn't want us to be discouraged. He doesn't want us to be disturbed and lose courage, to be despondent. And God says, I'm with you. I will help you. This is what God says to this. I'm with you. I will help you. I will never leave you nor forsake you. God says that you can depend on him. He's always going to do what's best for your life to help you. And so we need to have this attitude towards our children, that I'm here for you. I'll help you. This is not just how well you do in school. This is not about how good an athlete you are, but I'm here for you as the person. I'm here for you as the person. See, there is a need in children's lives, young people's lives. They have a daddy need. Unfortunately, many times the load of raising children has been left to the mother, but there's a thing in there for the daddy need. The daddy, that daddy void, it needs to be filled by the daddy, by the father, because a lot of kids are discouraged today because they don't have that daddy connection. You're Christian father, and you're trying to raise your children in the way of Christ. Understand your children need you. So listen, don't demean them, don't berate them, don't beat them down with your mouth, don't question their value, and don't abuse them. Make sure that you are tapping in with them. Spend some time with your children, just you and them. And if you have two or three, have some group time, but have some individual time. Your child has stuff going on in their lives. When you look around today, you see this a lot, that there's a lot going on that is impacting our young folk, and they're looking for somewhere to turn. Uh, Listen, oftentimes they're turning to the wrong thing. They're turning to the wrong thing now. So this is so you need to talk to them, talk with them. Don't just talk at them. Talk with them. I tell the guys on Men of Influence, I say, help your kids, help them learn how to think, help them to learn to think things through. They need your help. They need your help. Our young people, our children, they need the help. And many mothers have taken on that burden, like I said before, because fathers ain't doing it, but fathers ask, the mothers are doing it. There's no excuse for us not to do it. They need your help. We don't want them to be discouraged. And a lot of them, we see a lot of one of the things they're saying is young folk are giving up on life. Now, I'm not just saying this because they lack a father, but I'm saying that perhaps there's some who we can keep from going that way because we're being the father that we need to be them. And now listen, because I can't stay here too long. I got to move on. You see, well, I never had a father in my life, and so all this other stuff, would you please throw that out the window? You 40 years old, you 45 years old. Stop making excuses. Look at how God treats us. Look at how God talks to us in his word. Look at how God builds us up in his word. Your children need you to build them up. Your children need you to be a hope peddler in their lives, because God peddles hope. I just use that word. God is a God of hope, and your children need to understand that you're there to help them have hope, but also God is the greatest hope we can have. Okay, so don't provoke them to anger. Don't provoke them to wrath. Be there for them, and by all means, okay, be there for them, not just in the same house. Be there for them, and by all means, keep your promise, keep your word. When you tell them you're gonna do something with them, do it with them. Okay, I understand every now and then something might come up, but that something coming up should not be the norm. Something coming up should not be the norm. Kids can be crushed because of that daddy needs. Kids can be crushed when you're not keeping your word in their lives. Okay? So don't provoke them to anger. They need to be corrected. Yes, they'll need to be corrected, but when you correct them, do it with love and not out of anger. Okay? Correct them with love and not out of anger. Okay, sometimes they're going to be stubborn and hard-headed and all this stuff. Well, just go look in the mirror. Don't be so hard on them. Just go look in the mirror and remember what you used to be like. Fruit don't fall far from the tree. Okay, I got to go. So, family, again, this, I know this husbands, wives, and children thing, and we can say a whole bunch on them, okay, but we're not trying to do a workshop. We're not trying to do a conference. Just trying to give you some things to think about from this word that we're looking at in God. Okay, let's go on. Colossians 3, 22. Colossians 3:22, and we're going to read all the way down. We're going to finish it out 3:22 through 4:1. Now, this is order in the workplace. Order in the workplace. Let me move. Starting at verse 22. Bondservants, obey in all things your masters according to the flesh, not with eye service as men pleasers, but in sincerity of heart, fearing God. This is about, and for us, this would be more today. Employees, employers, bond servants, those who were under service. They put themselves under service to someone in those days. Many times we call the bond servants. Some versions use slaves. Okay, um, this is not Bible slavery. Okay, this is not Bible slavery. Okay, but see this here. See this here. Bond servants, obey your masters according to the flesh, not with eye service, as men please, but in sincerity of heart, fearing God. Because God, he says, not with eye, not just when they're looking, not just doing it to get by when they're looking, but in sincerity of heart, fearing God. Why? Because God always sees you. And whatever you do, do heartily as to the Lord, not to men. Consider God your ultimate supervisor, your ultimate boss. Consider God the one that you ultimately work for, okay? Knowing um, that from the Lord you receive the reward of inheritance, for you serve the Lord Christ on your job. Remember, you're there to be, you get to pay and all that other stuff, but you basically you're serving Christ on your job. You know why? Because you're representing Him. But he who does wrong will be repaid for what he's done, and there is no partiality. When you don't handle yourself right, I put it this way: there are consequences for jacked up work ethic. Consequences for jacked up work ethic. Okay, I just put it to you that way. Okay, so he says that to the employees. He says, "Work as unto the Lord." The companion passage is over in Ephesians 6:5-9. I won't read the whole thing, but he says the whole thing. He says, "You work as you work unto the Lord." If we would, what would our attitude be like? What would our job production be like if we went in with that attitude of working towards the Lord? Man, that'd be something else, wouldn't it? Instead of, well, anyway, y'all catch what I'm saying, okay? So believe employees are to work as working for the Lord. Uh, so let me move out because I got this one more. I got to go on here. We're through with you. Then when you get to Colossians 4:1, he says, "Masters, give your bond service what is just and fair, knowing that you also have a master in heaven." Now, I'm going to throw this in, Black History Month, I'm going to throw this in. Uh, in order to justify slavery, many slave owners pulled out parts of scripture that didn't fit what they wanted to do. They could talk about the bond servant, the slave being under them, okay, and they tried to justify that, but they took out the parts that talked about their responsibility, to what they were supposed to, how they were supposed to handle those that were working for them. Okay, here it is. Okay. Masters, give your bond servants what is just and fair. Tear that out. Tear that out, knowing that you have a master in heaven. Tear that out. That was not the thing. They wanted to emphasize how the slaves, whatever was supposed to be, under them. Okay, but here's the thing: believing employers are to treat their employees right, knowing that God is watching. My goodness. So if you are an employer, treat your people right, pay them right, uh, job conditions right, all these things right. You know why? Because God is watching you. God is watching you. So masters, those who are in charge of whatever it might be, God is watching you. Whatever authority you might have in the workplace, he says, believing employers, I'm going to say supervisors, I'm going to say what it is, make sure you treat those under you right. You know why? Because he is watching you. He's watching you. So some of the stuff that you think you're getting away with, mistreatment of employees, God's watching. God is watching you. Okay, so they're supposed to function under you, but you need to understand how you're supposed to function as having them in your service. So that's it, y'all. We're gonna stop there. We made the 4:1 Colossians. Now the whole idea, though, of what we talked about is God has function, God has order, God has a way He wants things done in our lives. Okay, be it in the family or in the workplace, God has called for order and function, and we are to line our lives up under God's word. That's the whole thing, that we line our lives up under God's word, and live the way he's called us to live. Pray with me if you would. God, we bless you for this word. I pray this word was received tonight and it be looked at even more on how the family is to function before you. And even as we as believers are to function in the workplace, help us to understand it's not about us, it's about you. And you want us to come to bring our lives under what you have said to your glory. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Hey, God bless you. Thank you for stopping by to be with us. Have a great rest of your evening and a great rest of your week in Jesus Christ.